Right, we're going live. We're live now. 3. Let's do some cabs first to get some people on board. Right. Here we go.
We're live, John.
Live.
Right. As you can see behind me is a whole stream of taxis. They're heading into Elephant and Castles now. Now this is to protest the illegality of Uber's operation here in the capital. Even though it has been established that they are illegal, TfL continue to let them operate here. Now, this is without a license. So imagine this, Uber is here not even having to pay for a private hire operator's license. We think this is disgusting. Disgusting that we are put at risk with all the accidents that are happening, and the public is being put at risk with the fallout that has happened even since they were refused a license back in May. So here you see the cavalry of taxis coming in now to Elephant and Castles to protest the passivity by TfL over the illegality of Uber's operation. Here we have it being held up at the junction at the bottom of Newington Causeway with Elephant and Castles. Now the contempt TfL is showing the licensed taxi trade by allowing Uber to continue, given that last year there was 48 sexual assaults by Uber drivers, given the fact that there were 3 murders, 2 of them here in the capital, and a terrorist attack by Uber drivers, they are allowed to continue. On a managerial level, you've got greyballing. Greyballing is an insidious ring fencing of an individual or a company to stop them being privileged to certain information. You've got data protection breaches. Now, this is the biggest data breach ever recorded in history. And this is a company that committed perjury in court in order to obtain a license. Now, if that isn't grounds to revoke their license permanently, then I don't know what is.
We just had a message come through. Uber is killing taxis in the USA. Well, it's killing taxis worldwide, isn't it, really?
International, it's killing incumbent trades and local trades. Now, I think what has happened recently, since they was refused a license, I think there's this realisation that one model does not fit all, that certain models adjust to certain demographics easier and harder, whatever that demographic is. Now that has to be taken into consideration. Certainly in London, it has almost created a sense of civil unrest because the licensed taxi trade here is very much embedded into the system, and then you've got them coming in, and the way they've created this kind of efficient model of working is by having en masse oversaturation of the market. Now, en masse oversaturation of the market is grossly inefficient, and it has caused problems. Now, with everything that's fallen out with Uber, it beggars belief that a company like this could actually continue. They talk about corporate responsibility. I consider this to be nothing more than corporate abuse. Corporate abuse is allowing them to continue here, and the taxi trade isn't going to stand for it. As you see, Elephant and Castle, it really doesn't need too many taxis to kind of block up the junction at Elephant and Castle.
Why is that then? I wonder why that is. Is it a fantastic traffic modelling scheme?
Well, let me tell you something. Apparently it was done at a party one night, scribbled on fag paper and given to it and carried out. Now that would be the likability of it, considering the implausibility and considering the illogical way you go around Elephant Castles. TfL seem to know better in organising their roundabouts, because you actually go round Elephant and Castle in the illogical way, in the opposite way to what you usually go around roundabouts. And I think that is bizarre. I think in the first week, considering that this traffic provision, this traffic modelling was put in place for cycling safety, I think in the first week there was 2 cycling fatalities because of the illogical.
We're talking about fatalities and safety. Someone's just said about they thought it was illegal for to use a mobile phone while driving. Well, exactly what Uber does, but there seems to be a massive increase in accidents, of course.
The increase in accidents. I tell you.
Hold on, sorry. No, it's not an Uber protest. Who's that? Just put that message. It's a TfL protest.
This is not
nothing to do with Uber.
This is not about Uber. Uber are symptomatic of the cause. Uber is, you can't expect corporations to not take opportunities they're presenting with. So they're presented with an opportunity to carry on operating here in the capital while they have been suspended. Now, that shouldn't be. That is completely and utterly, categorically down to TFL. Nothing to do with Uber. But it is, they are symptomatic of the course. And we must send out a strong message to other operations that think they could come into the capital and run roughshod through our democracy. No one should be in favour of running through our democracy like that. No one. That transcends the taxi trade. It just so happens that it is the taxi trade that's been infracted upon here.
Yeah, and someone's just put the normal one. Oh, Uber are cheaper. St Pancras to Paddington, £7 in Uber, £25. Now, I'm sure
of
exploiting, isn't it?
Exploitation of the workers. But also, it's kind of. I'm sure if you was offered the price of a bag of crisps, you would also pay that to get to Paddington Station. The fact is, they are predatory pricing to undermine the incumbent trade here in London, and this is happening globally. So they take investment from countries with atrocious human rights records and then use that money to subsidise their product to undercut the local trade. Now, nobody can compete with a predatory pricing policy, and predatory pricing is illegal. So why is it being allowed to happen here in the capital?
Someone's just put out, why is Uber allowed to carry on? Well, that's why we're here, because of TFL.
That's why we're here to protest.
TFL.
Again, they wouldn't be allowed to carry on here if it wasn't for TFL. Now, if we don't think they're looking favourable on Uber, look at Taxify. Taxify came in with the same operational model as Uber, and yet when TFL found out, they closed their operation down in a second. So why is there state assistance being offered to Uber to operate here in the capital, even though they've been found to be not fit and not proper in order to do so?
Well, and there we go. That goes back to the old chumocracy situation that Guy Adams and the rest of the journalists exposed.
That's right.
And that's why they've been allowed to operate.
And the evidence is there now. It's not as if we are trying to smack people between the eyes with the evidence, even though the licensed taxi trade was giving this evidence over to TFL 2 to 3 years ago. Yeah. So we're in the situation now where that evidence has come to light, but Uber are still allowed to operate. I reiterate, that's 48 sexual assaults. They're also guilty of withholding information from the authorities, and it took a senior police constable to actually reveal that to TFL. They have overseen this with 2 murders in London and another one in the UK, and also we've had a terrorist attacker who was an Uber driver. Now, this has to be grounds for their revocation. Also, the message has to be sent out to other companies that might think they could come in and see kind of London as a soft option to kind of take control there. We are not going to stand for it. We shouldn't stand for it. This isn't protectionism in the sense that we're kind of anti-competitive, because as we've talked about, predatory pricing policies isn't about being competitive, it's about engineering the market. Being allowed to predatory price is engineering the market in order to embed their system here. Now, this can't be allowed, can it? The local industry, the licensed taxi trade, is making it known that this should not be allowed.
Can you walk up and have a look at see what we got to get to?
I think as you see, and we might try and catch a word with a few of the cabbies here, but as you see that we're at lockdown already. Like I say, Elephant and Castle isn't the
live broadcast. Watch it.
He's after something.
He wants to be Davis.
He's after something. I know he is. Come on, God. He'll be here. He's messaging me, as I'm sure most people will, because the thing is, there is we have a sense that the cab trade is beaten by the sticks so much that it can't muster up this kind of offence. Well, today is evidence. Johnson's walked into the post. It's a good look. Nobody saw it.
It was a TFL post. Let's put it on purpose.
It wasn't me.
I didn't even stutter there. I didn't do that. I only went arse over
That's all I can say. Yeah. But as I said, look, it doesn't take too much. The sun's come out, as it always does, to shine on the cab trade, because we're right.
Exactly.
It does any more have to be said. But look, I'm all for people to try and come with some kind of argument in favour of Uber working here. But no one should be in favour of a multinational coming into this country and driving a horse and cart through our legislation. because the way they operate is in transgression of the 1998 Private Hire Act. And now, the fact that the driver accepts the booking and not the operator fundamentally changes the way private hire are accessed. Now, I'm sure TFL will minimise this, as did Uber.
Oh, sorry, someone said Deloitte should even use Chris Johnson's flowcharts to prove the allocation. You know, the LCDC were right about that.
Well, the LCDC were right. Chris Johnson, remember the LCDC? Cab driver, and the fact that this information has been provided by the cab trade. It's been provided by the cab trade for the last 2 to 3 years, but has not been taken any notice of. Whether in transgression of the 1998 Private Hire Act, they will try and minimise, eliminated the operator. Hello, mate. They'll try and minimise that. It cannot be minimised. It fundamentally changes the way private hire are accessed, and when you look on it, the fallout from the driver accepting the fare directly, the fallout has been astronomical. Since the Uber had its licence refused, there's been 48 sexual assaults, including rape. There's been 2 murders. There has been a terrorist attack, and that comes on top of the extraordinary amount of accidents that are happening here in the capital, all involving Uber drivers. That is the fallout you have got from a company that works on demand, and that's the point. They are working on demand market. They are applying for hire in the same way that licensed taxis do. Now, because they take the hail off the app itself, the hail is an indication that they want a fare. The moment the driver stops to pick up that fare, he has now performed an illegal activity. He has taken that ride illegally.
And we've got a guest here. Now,
This is when we're going back to the good old days here with, this is Jim Thomas. He's here reporting from Taxi Leaks. Now, he will tell you that this protest is needed because we've got an operation here, haven't we, Jim? That's in transgression of the law. They've committed perjury in the High Court in order to obtain a licence and are still allowed to operate here on the basis of an appeal. Something completely wrong with that, isn't there, Jim?
And by doing nothing, no one's listening to us at all.
That's it.
No one's listening to us at all. So this is the only tool we've got left in our box. This is what we've got to do.
I mean, nobody's listening to cab trade. Been off to talk now for 3 years over this illegality of their operation, and yet nobody's talking with us. We've got the wonderful Metropolitan Police here. How you doing? You okay?
Just to make you aware, my camera is
Oh
recording.
yes, of course. Yeah. That's no problem.
That's all right. How are you today?
All right, we're okay. We come down to report on what's going on.
You just wanted to get in our video, didn't you?
You knew we got 130.
It's a potential start.
That's it. You know we got 133 people live.
133. Yeah, that goes up to thousands. Periscope's a great one because you've got 133. That generally goes to about 2,000 overnight, doesn't it? So,
what brings you here today then? You
reporting or? Reporting, yeah.
We are 3 reporters, yeah. Okay.
3 reporters, but my throat's going. It's not very good. My throat's going.
So this is live on London Taxi Radio.
We have got an odd situation here. I know. The Met, they're kind of to the bone, stripped to the bone as well. They're having all their resources taken away from them. But the fact that you've got an operation here, an illegal operation, which has been allowed now to continue, been in perjury to obtain their licence, operating here illegally, 40,000 of their drivers working for them. And there's no provision put in place to say, right, you have to apply these conditions to ensure safety. None whatsoever.
And one of the worst things about it is a third of their workforce, 13,000 of their drivers, had fake DBS checks, criminal record checks, and they've swept it under the carpet and just allowed them to carry on. This is wrong.
Well, these were DBS checks that were farmed out by TFL to a company that invests heavily in Uber to fast track them through the system so that they can get them out on the road. This is why licensed taxis were being held up for 3 to 4 months to have their renewals. Now, this is outrageous. It's outrageous that a company that invested in Uber was allowed to carry out these DBS checks. I say, let us go back under the Met. We had, as much as we complained about the Met back in the day, we had a great time under the Met. It was brilliant.
Standards were higher.
Standards were incredibly high. And I mean, that was the system. You've never ever been allowed to come into the system here under the conditions they've come into the system under the Met. Absolutely no way. Absolutely no way. All right?
So, have a little wabsy there. I reckon those pair were sent over those. They thought we was the leaders of this, the ITA. No one knows.
I've just been told something really interesting. You know,
look how tall Jim Thomas is.
Look at that.
Did you ever think he was that tall?
That's the stuff he has.
Over there you've got community service officers.
That's why they got 3 wheels.
And they're on 3 wheels, 3 wheels.
Right.
And I was talking to one of the fellas and he said, can't one let them use petrol bikes in London anymore, so they've got to have electric bikes. Have a guess who's going to build the electric bikes?
Who?
You. No, Geely.
Geely.
That's what he told me.
Geely, that's unreal.
And a police officer wouldn't lie, would he?
There we go. There we go.
I'm in the cycle lane.
Hold on.
I'm making use of the cycle lane. As you
It's a
can
very
see,
wide cycle lane.
I'm making use of the cycle lane. As you can see, it's free to make use of. You know. People are making noise though.
People are making noise. If you're listening, blow your horns.
It sounds a bit like a demonstration.
Let's make it sound like a demonstration.
It does.
I mean,
and as you see there, we've got the Metropolitan Police. They were wearing cameras. I'm sure they was aware we were filming for police.
That's what they've been sent over, haven't they? They've been sent over to us.
Sent over there. And this is the thing. The ITA is non-attributive in the sense that it's a collection of individual cab drivers, aggrieved cab drivers, that come together in order to legitimately protest. And that's the point. There's a legitimate grievance here. That's not being talked about, that's not being discussed, that's not being negotiated. And so this is a group of cab drivers coming together, individual cab drivers, under the umbrella of the ITA. The ITA is non-attributive, it's not an entity unto itself, it's just an umbrella term for individual cab drivers to come together and protest
So there's no leader to the ITA?
There's no leaders, no. I mean, sorry? I've got it. There is.
Well, let's have a look at the leaflet. While we've got this young whippersnap here. So these are what is being given out. Just if we point one of these up, Sean.
This is the leaflet that's been handed out today.
Mind your phone. There we go. There we go.
I'll tell you the back, because there's a lot of information on the back. Oh, well, there was. You might have the back one to the... Oh, here we go. If you can focus in on that, those are the reasons for the protest today here at Elephant and Castle.
TFL currently allow unlicensed and unfit operators to flout the law. TFL currently allow 13,000 PH drivers to work without DBS checks, which Jim Thomas was saying there. TFL currently allow PH drivers to work without medical certificates. TFL currently allow PH drivers to legally accept direct bookings. TFL licensed PH drivers whose licence have been revoked elsewhere. TFL collude with an unfit operator during a police investigation. TFL conspired with an unfit operator to streamline PH application. TFL refused to initiate checks on an unfit operator for 5 years. TFL assisted an unfit operator to illegally circumnavigate regulations. TFL lied to GLA about PH on-off insurance. That was the old Leon Daniels special, wasn't it? Leon the Liar. Leon the Liar. TFL lied to GLA about checking unfit operators' modus operandi. TFL lied to the GLA about an unfit operator non-existent contact number. Again, the good old Leon Daniels, right? Hold on. There he is! Look! So let's jump in.
We saw you trying to call. Let's jump in. We're going to fixed price, I hope.
Let me open the door.
Fixed price.
Right, here we go.
Make it snappy.
Oh, look at it! Oh, look!
Fixed price, I hope.
Fixed price.
Right.
Oh, look at this.
Hello, Dave.